How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's get into the books I read this week. But real quick, the last week for the Comic Book Community Awards voting time is right now. So if you haven't voted yet, I'll have a link down below in the description and a couple of categories that I'm nominated in. Really appreciate any votes you have right there. But with that out of the way, let's get into the books I read this week. Starting with DC, we have the new All In series starting. We have Batman, Absolute Batman rather, issue number 1. Of course, we have Snyder on here, we have Dragata, and this was pretty interesting. Now, I won't go into the events of All In. Go ahead and read that one. There's two different stories, like an Alpha and Omega, and it flips around. Art's crazy. The event's insane itself, but this is the first time we get a taste of the Absolute Batman, and it's pretty interesting. This is a world that Darkseid kind of rules, I suppose. That's the general idea with this whole Absolute run. So we have a different flavor of Batman, the ancillary characters that we all know, and it feels like another Elseworld Batman. This is the answer to Marvel's Ultimate line, I think, right now. This is like their Ultimate DC universe. A lot of great characters, action-packed, everything is over the top. The character design is so huge, it reminds me a lot of like any kind of Frank Miller Batmans, you know, so it's ultra-violent, it's beefy, it's chunky, and like I said, it's bringing a lot of the characters that we know into the story as well, and it's just kind of changing things. Think about what Mark Russell's doing right now in Dark Age. Same story, plays out a little bit differently, and the perspective of this book is interesting too. It's not necessarily from Batman's perspective, it's from another character, so we're seeing it from this other person's perspective, and it's really cool to see all these moments play out because we have these understandings of these characters and they're twisted a little bit, so that's what brings a lot of fun to this. Artwork was great, lots of action in here, a lot of cool, like, inventive things, right? Batman is fighting in this really particular fashion and using his suit in ways we haven't seen before, so a lot of excitement around this book right now. Got that Wes Craig variant, because of course you do. And I'm all in right now. So, Batman, what'd you guys think? All right, that's it for DC. Let's go over to Marvel. We have the Ultimates issue number 5 featuring our Hawkeye character right here. And this is another great issue. We're still building our ranks right now of our Ultimates team. We're trying to get Hawkeye. We were teased earlier that Hawkeye like threw away his suit, very Spider-Man-ish. And we don't know who took up the mantle really. Somebody took all that equipment and they've been training, making a name for themselves across the world. And now Captain America has to go in there and just kind of investigate, see what the heck is going on, who this person is, what their motives are, and you know, kind of go from there. So it's a big standoff issue between those two characters. Of course, there's some battling going on in between all these arrow dodging moments. We have basically this like issue long speech that Captain America gives this particular character, and we get to see a big display of powers, to be honest, all the different kinds of arrows and everything, and how like formidable this character is, and a little bit about her background perhaps, and we get a great team up moment as well, and a little hint about the overall villain inside of this particular book and what their general plans are to take care of this growing Ultimates team. So I will say, action-packed issue. It's kind of redundant or repetitive throughout, you know, page by page, but it was still entertaining for sure. And it's keeping my interest in the Ultimate line in general. So let me know what you guys thought about this one if you read it down below. All right, continuing Marvel, we have Sentinels issue number 1 from Alex Packnadell, and we have Mason on the art. I got this one because it was a really cool looking cover, so that was the first thing right there. The solicitation was also talking about how they're revamping the Sentinel program in general, and this is what's going on now with the Sentinels. We basically have this team with Sentinel-ish power. They have like nanotech in a way, and they're hunting down all these different mutants. They're going after Omega Red right here in the opening pages, so we get introduced to this team in general, and then we get this big standoff with Omega Red, which I thought was handled really well. The art is really spectacular in this book. The story, I'm not really buying much of the new Marvel books right now. I tried them all out, 2 or 3 issues, and there's only a couple that are holding my attention. I'm not sure this is one of them, to be honest with you, but it was a cool first issue. So, I mean, if you're into this kind of stuff, I think you're going to dig it. I'm not really into like the ancillary X teams, to be honest. I prefer to stick with like the main runs and whatnot. But if you're somebody who likes to dive right in and read everything related to any of the X events coming out, then this might be a book for you. Again, the Omega Red parts were my favorite part in here. Of course, there's some politics and things like that for the people that are running this entire program. We get to see a little bit of some cameos from some other mutants from time to time. And again, the art is what's really spectacular inside this book. So if you want to see the Sentinels, you know, acting a little bit different, they're performing their same actions, taking out the mutants and whatnot, just in a different way, you can check out this one. Let me know if you read it down below. Next up is Brian Hill. We have CF Villa as well with Blade. Got the red band issue right there, issue number 1. So, man, Blade's having a hell of a time in the past year or so. He had a solo series out right before this last event, Blood Hunt, I think it was, and it was received pretty well. The ending of it fell off, though, because we were assuming that he was being written into a corner essentially with this new event, and they had to kind of end things quickly, but it had some decent steam to it. It had a compelling story. Then the event happened. Blade turned into a villain. He was like possessed and whatnot. And I actually liked Blood Hunt, the main run, to be honest with you. But now that that's over, he's in exile right now. He's living off the land and staying out of trouble and doing what Blade does if he decides to just disappear for a while and do whatever he wants to do. And of course, somebody comes knocking on the door eventually, some mysterious messenger that represents some clan that no one's ever heard of before. And he's just like a weird looking dude. And he basically gives Blade an offer he can't refuse. And if he does, he'll try to take him out. And that's where we are. There's a new power struggle right now in this secret organization, and now it's being led by a very familiar character in like vampire lore in general. Somebody that I haven't seen in Marvel Comics like ever, but I'm sure that you long-term fans have seen him before, and that's at least interesting. The new power struggle within this organization. Now Blade has to take it upon himself to figure this out and save the day, stop this organization from, going too crazy. As far as the red band edition of this book, I haven't seen the regular print, but there's nothing like too insane inside of here, so I can't imagine there's that much difference. But these red band books seem to, especially the variants, I suppose, or the instead of variants, seem to go for a little bit of money. So, if you're lucky enough to get one of those, then good for you. But this red band one, not necessarily required. Let me know if you know the difference between the editions down below in the comments if you have them both, but let me know what your overall thoughts were as well down there. All right, we actually have 3 Dynamite books, which I'm excited about. First off, we have the Terminator issue number 1. Highly anticipated, I would say. Declan Shelby's on here, but we also have a backstory from Sal from Comic Pop, which is essentially why I got the book, to be honest with you. But I'm a big long-term fan of Terminator. We had that movie on repeat when I was a kid. Old VHS format, every day after school, popping it in. Was in love with it. I actually like some of the newer movies as well, but obviously not as good as the first 2. But with that said, I was excited for this one nonetheless. Featuring an older couple right here, and they're kind of like living on their own in seclusion right now, just living off the land or whatever. And apparently this Terminator's been stalking them all these years. We have this cool flashback moment as to the origin of them escaping this Terminator, but we don't exactly know why necessarily they're on the run, or why this Terminator wants them. And so, it kind of bounces back and forth in time, but there's some cool moments in this book, but I think we're lacking the rationale or the reason why this book exists at the moment, or what's so important with this couple, what's this Terminator's vision, or what's this Terminator's mission. So I think that part fell a little bit flat. So if you know that answer, let me know down below in the comments, and I'll take another look at it and see if that jives, right? The other part here is that you might be buying this book because Sal from Comic Pop actually did some of the back matter in here, but I will say we get a very limited view of what that is at the moment. We get basically a setup page and a shock page, right? It's only a couple of pages long. We're going to need some more time to flush that story out to see what his overall vision is. So it's not a whole lot of back matter, but it is there technically. So I'm excited to see that flushed out a little bit more. So we have the Terminator issue number 1. Not bad. It needs a couple more issues to really tell us what it's about, I think. But let me know if you read it down below. Space Ghost from Dynamite. We have issue number 6. This is our Moltar issue, and they're just hitting us with all the main characters right now. And so I'm a little bit excited, or a little bit cautious to see where are we going to go from here? How many more villains does he have? Because I don't know too much about the Space Ghost rogues gallery, to be honest with you, but we're knocking them out right now, it seems. And but I've been eating it up, and it's been just such a fun ride with incredible artwork and just spectacular showcases of power from all these villains. Man, Moltar is a dangerous dude. Done so well in here. Jonathan Lau has some incredible artwork inside of here, which is one of the biggest, strongest points of this story. The writing is so compelling and so emotional too. We're dealing with a lot of trauma. We're dealing with trying to save the world, trying to save the innocent. But yeah, a lot of our people, we have some trauma we're dealing with right now. We're trying to get back into the game a little bit. And this is that moment here. Can we sit back and kind of lick our wounds, or can we actually get back into the fight and help the team out and, win the day? You know what I mean? So we're dealing with a lot inside this book. So it's compelling, emotional writing, and it's also spectacular artwork and coloring in here too. So Space Ghost issue number 6 continues to be very, very strong. Let me know if you're reading it. The last item in my book I read this week was Johnny Quest. We have issue number 3. Now, I really liked issue number 1. Issue number 2 was falling a little bit because it was building upon the shock value of issue number 1, so it didn't have that like punch like we got in issue number 1. Issue number 3 is kind of the same. We are trying to develop our way of going back to our own timeline. We're time displaced right now, so we're trying to figure that out. So there's a lot of like sitting in a lab, developing some techniques or some tools or some enhancements for our machines to get back to our own timeline. There's some more surprise characters popping up inside this book, a few action scenes, things like that. And I would say overall, it's a good paced book, but I think that it's just lacking some of the punch that we got inside of issue number 1. Now, I don't know what else you could add to the book. At least, like I said, it was exciting, it was fast paced, and there's lots of action in here. And the characters are still pretty true, right? The voices of them. And I really feel their struggle here, you know what I mean? Some of our ranks were captured at the end. We're still exploring some of these characters, these mysterious characters that pop in. And again, we have this greater threat that we see again inside this book. And, he's going over what his plans are as well. So Johnny Quest, not as strong as it was in the first issue, I would say. Issue number 2 and 3 are kind of like okay at the moment. So I'm going to give it a few more issues, see where it goes from there. But let me know if you guys are reading it, what you guys think down below. Boom Studios, Jeff Lemire, Minor Arcana issue number 2. This is Jeff Lemire like doing Jeff Lemire stuff. His artwork is insane in here. We're exploring magical alternative worlds, like purgatory worlds, so to speak. We have this woman who's gone back home. Her mother is sick. She runs basically this like medium shop, right? Like crystal ball, tarot card kinds of things. And she's kind of like, the daughter's kind of half in, half out of this world. Mom's real sick. A regular client comes in. She sits down at the table with her and pretends to do whatever she wants to do with this crystal ball. She somehow gets sucked up into this reality, and the person that this client is asking about, we have a conversation with them, and we start to realize that maybe there's some kind of purgatory, some kind of like afterlife thing happening right here, and we don't know exactly what's going on. And our main character here either, forgets it or believes it's some kind of a hallucination, something like that. But she snaps out of it eventually and gets back to the real world. And of course, we have some more fallout between her and her mom and this client and whatnot. But what Jeff Lemire does really well in these books is he really does a great job of capturing emotion. These like trippy landscapes, just handles them really well. The artwork is really unsettling, and the vibe you get is just perfect for these kinds of stories. And I just love all the raw emotion inside of the book in general. So if you like Jeff Lemire's work, if you've read some of the other things and you like that emotional impact and that just craziness that can follow with those books, then I think you're really going to enjoy this one right here. So check out Minor Arcana if you have not yet. We're only 2 issues in. It's been spectacular so far. Let me know if you're reading it. Kelly Thompson on Scarlet. We have issue number 5, wrapping up this run right here in preparation for G.I. Joe. I will say overall, this entire story has been basically Scarlet trying to get back with Jinx. Long-term friendship, partners for a long time, and we know now that Jinx has been indoctrinated inside of like the enemy camps right now, kind of going undercover at the moment, and we have Scarlet teaming up with her, going on this very dangerous mission with Storm Shadow, and we get to understand like what they're after and the power behind it and what it means for their clan. And now Jinx is back into a situation where it's going to be very hard to get her out, extract her from that position, and that's all that Scarlet is focused on inside of here. The artwork is pretty good. It has a very loose tie to the Energon books in general, but we're going to rectify that once we go into the G.I. Joe run, I would assume. We get some Cobra action in here as well. Just like tons of action scenes, things like that. So if you like military spy thrillers, extract the good guy from the bad guys, a little bit of like magical elements twisted in there too, I think you're really going to dig Scarlet. Give it a shot. Going over to Image, we have Guer issue number 7, kind of playing off the previous issue where we went to this radiated zoo. What a spectacular read that was. Jeff Johns on this one. We have an art shift on here as well, which you don't really notice, to be honest with you. So they did a good job of keeping that look consistent, at least. If you read the previous issue, you were introduced to this little zebra character that we see inside of this one as well. Kind of the new pet for Guer and our Nite right here. But some of the other Knights, these Knights from like Las Vegas, whatever they are, the Golden Knights, are catching up with our guys right here. And there's these epic battles going on between all of them. And the cool thing is our Nite on Geiger's side, knows these people. He's lived with them. He's worked with them, things like that. He knows their families. He's trying to plead with them to not go down this path of like revenge or whatever against Guer. And so they don't exactly heed his warning. And unfortunately, they are taken care of. But there's this little like maybe like an animosity, or there's something growing between the two characters, maybe slightly. And Geiger doesn't want anything about it, doesn't want to hear anything about it, right? They're out to kill me. It's me or them kind of an attitude. But this guy's living on the line a little bit. I don't know if they're going to explore that some more, but that's a cool, interesting note right there. We are introduced to a few more characters. So Geiger and our Nite are going to be exploring what they're all about in here. They have some kind of a camp or town or something like that. Is it going to be friend? Is it going to be foe? I'm guessing it's going to be some twisted stuff that we're going to be seeing eventually. And we're not done with these Knights. These Golden Knights will be back with more reinforcements from the other families. And I can't wait to see that epic showdown. So Geiger, issue number 7, continues to be really strong. Let me know if you're reading it. All right, Transformers issue number 13, starting that next arc right here. If you're a long-term Transformers fan, you understand the relationships between people, especially on the Decepticon side. Maybe even like the early history of the characters, how they got recruited into the war, and the relationships between them, maybe even nowadays. Maybe this is all brand new information to you, but if you're into that kind of stuff, you're going to dig this issue. If you're someone like me who can, hold his own in a conversation, so to speak, but it still has a hard time like differentiating characters, and you don't have that legacy that a lot of people have with Transformers, this issue might not hit for you, to be honest with you. But we do have some cool flashback moments with some of the different people that we've seen throughout this entire run, and we get to see a little bit about like the war of Cybertron impacting society in general, and people are starting to like plant their flag in either camp at this moment, and we get to see the impact of the war on these characters, which is cool. So I think that's a relatively new concept in this Transformers world, but correct me if I'm wrong there. We do have some flashes to the present day. There were some battles going on, and we get to see the outcome of that. We get to see some G.I. Joe related characters showing up on the scene and like maybe using some of the parts and whatnot that they're finding to enhance their own equipment. That's going to evolve over time. But I would say if you're a big fan of Starscream, I think you're going to love this issue in general. I'm not going to say anything else besides that. But again, if you're into the Transformers lore, all the relationships, you're going to love this one. If not, you might feel a little put out, but we have issue number 13. Let me know what you thought. All right, we're going to wrap it up with Precious Metal issue number 5. Darcy Van Polgeest, we have Ian Bertram, we have Matt Hollingsworth, Hassan, and Ben Didier on this one. Absolutely incredible book. It's probably, it is the best looking book we have on shelves right now from an interior perspective, from a presentation perspective in general. Image Comics is really doing this justice, and I'm so happy that they're giving the team all the tools they need to make just a spectacular, spectacular book. The interiors alone are absolutely incredible. I don't know how they do it, but the writing in this book in particular, issue number 5, this is like the Bishop's Crusade book. Bishop is this oppressive religious kind of force right now, and he is going around cleansing the land at this moment, and he is absolutely wrecking shop with his army, taking absolutely no prisoners to just do whatever they need to do to cleanse the land. We have this other story going on with Max finally getting a hold of the child, trying to figure out what to do with him next. Who can he trust? Who can he not trust? And when we put our trust in certain people, are we rewarded? Are they really truthful what they're trying to accomplish? Max is real protective of this kid. He has his own family to worry about. So we're juggling a lot of amazing things in here. So from a story perspective, it's very complex. Lots of cool characters in here. This is definitely a book that as soon as I'm done reading it, I want to go back to number 1 and just read them all right through to really comprehend and take in the magnitude of the story in general. Precious Metal is the best book out right now, I think. You really have to read this. If you have not read Little Bird, go back and read that. Me and Eric did a whole breakdown in that video. You can check out my playlists for that. But Precious Metal, if you're not reading it, please do yourself a favor. Pick up the single issues, wait for the collected format in a couple of months. You will not regret it. Let me know if you read it though, down below. All right, guys, so that's all I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below in the comments what you read and what your favorite books of the week were. While you're down there, like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the comments.